Hello, and welcome to Lesson 16. So today we're going to be talking about more complicated evaluations. This is a continuation from our Lesson 14, in which we talked about evaluating certain simple expressions, such as x plus y. Given that we know x is equal to a 1, let's say, and y is equal to a 2, let's say, we can evaluate this very simple expression by just plugging in the values of x and y, and we end up with our solution, which in this case is a 3. So we are now going to take this and move into a more advanced stage of it and look at more difficult problems. So let's begin by just talking about symbols of inclusion. Recall what a set of parentheses does. A set of parentheses simply includes numbers or variables inside it and kind of sets it apart as its own little problem within a problem. All right. And it's very handy. So if I have 6, plus 3 minus 4, and for whatever reason I want you to do the 3 minus 4 portion first, I might throw this into a set of parentheses. It's kind of creating this own little problem within a larger problem. But sometimes we want to include parentheses, sets of parentheses, as kind of their own individual problems. So if we want to include parentheses, we need to use another set of symbols. And the set of symbols are brackets. So brackets will enclose parentheses. If we want to enclose brackets, we would use what's called braces. So braces enclose brackets. Those are kind of the different levels for symbols of inclusion. And we'll be using all three of them in the upcoming problems here. One thing to remember though, this is the order in which they would occur. So parentheses should always be at the innermost portion of the problem. Braces are always at the outermost portion of the problem. So you should never have something that looks like this, a set of parentheses that encloses a set of braces. That would not be accurate. That would not be correct. All right, so let's go ahead and now look at a problem. So here we have a basic problem that you'll see in your textbook, and they're asking us to evaluate it. All right, now I'm going to start by just telling you right up front that these problems do take a little bit of work. I'm not going to say that they're hard. They're not hard. They're easy to do, but they are a little bit tricky in the sense that it's very simple to make a mistake. So a lot of people kind of fall to the temptation of believing they can do these problems in their heads, or just, whip through them really fast and get to the solution right away without doing a whole lot of work. And they often get the problem wrong. So kind of go into this with that foreknowledge that they are easy to make mistakes. Take your time, do more work than you feel you actually need to in order to steer away from getting that wrong answer. All right, so take your time on these. I will say that right up front. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So when we have these problems, the first step is to rewrite them. And we're going to rewrite them by plugging in the values for the variables in the expression. But we're not just going to do that. We're also going to include all of the variables in a set of parentheses. We'll be adding parentheses to these problems. When we rewrite them, we'll also be upgrading all the symbols of inclusion that have variables inside of them. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So let's go ahead and take an example here. So this A, we are going to rewrite the problem, but we know the A is a -4. Before we just write a -4 though, I'm going to say to myself, this is a variable, A. I'm going to set it up in a set of parentheses. Whatever A's value is, I'm going to set it in this set of parentheses. All right? So A is a -4, so I will place that in the set. Now I'll bring down the next symbol, which is a minus sign, a negative sign. I'm just going to bring that down. I'm not going to change it. Just leave it the way it is. The next thing is to take this set of inclusion, this parenthesis. That's been given to us in the problem. When we rewrite the problem, we will need to upgrade that to the next level of inclusion if there are variables inside this inclusive set. All right. So clearly there are variables here. We have this set of parentheses. Maybe I'll do this in a different color. We have this set of parentheses right here. And there are variables inside that set of parentheses. So because there are variables, we are going to upgrade this parenthesis to the next level, which would turn it into a bracket. Remember, it goes parentheses, brackets, braces. All right, so we're going to upgrade it to a bracket. Very good. Now we'll take the next letter, which is an A, the variable, and we'll place that in its set of parentheses again, just like we did before, and it's going to become a -4 in parentheses. Then we take the B. It's going to get its own set of parentheses, and its value is a -2. So we'll use that. Then we bring down this minus sign. Now we have another variable, an A. So once again, we're going to use parentheses, and that A is a -4. And then we have this concluding parenthesis, which again, we're going to upgrade to the closing bracket. All right. All right. That is the first step. And I know it seems tedious, but take the time to do this. You'll get far more answers right. All right. Okay, so now once we have it to this stage, we're going to go through and try to just eliminate the parentheses and rewrite it, just kind of clean it up a bit. So let's take this first -4. This -4, the thing to look for is ask yourself, is it being multiplied by anything? And if it's not being multiplied by anything, then you can drop the parentheses around it. So -4 is clearly not being multiplied by anything, so we can just leave it as -4. Then we have this minus sign. We'll bring that down. We have our bracket. We're going to leave that there for now. Right now, we're just trying to eliminate parentheses. We're kind of starting at the innermost portions here of our symbols of inclusion and working our way out. So in the parentheses now, we have a -4, and it's being multiplied, that invisible multiplication sign there, by a -2. So -4 times a -2 is a +8. So we'll write that now. +8. Then we have this minus sign, and it's a -4. And a -4 is going to be a +4, right? So now we have cleaned it up to this point. We've gotten rid of all of our parentheses. Now we can get rid of the next symbol of inclusion, which is going to be our brackets, right? So let's do the brackets next. We leave the -4 alone. The minus sign, we leave that alone. What do we have in the brackets? 8 plus 4, which is 12. So 8 plus 4 is 12. We can do that. Since it's down to one number, we can eliminate the brackets. If you want to, you can even just, keep those brackets around it if you want for right now, just so that you're clear. All right, so we have -4 minus 12. And a -4 minus a 12 is going to be a -16. So that is going to be our solution. All right, now let's go on to the next problem here. Why don't you actually pause the video? Try this one on your own just to get your feet wet a little bit, and then we will do it together and see how you did. And let me just make this a -4. There we go. All right, go ahead. All right, so let's see how you did. Once again, we start the problem by simply rewriting it, plugging in all our variables into parentheses. So we have a negative and then an x. What is an x? It's a -4. So we're going to put that x in a set of parentheses, -4. Then we have an a. It's going to need its parentheses. It's a -2. Now we have this parenthesis. That needs to be upgraded to a bracket. The a is going to be a -2 plus an x, and the x is going to be a -4. And then we have this parenthesis, which again we need to upgrade to a bracket, plus an x, which is a -4, and that again needs to go in parentheses. And there we go. We've rewritten everything out. Excuse me. Now we're ready to do some simplification here. So let's start by trying to get rid of the parentheses. What do we see here? Well, we see a -4. Now, a -4 is a +4. But don't forget, there's this multiplication sign between these two. So a -4 is going to give us a +4. But it's a 4 times this -2. So we can multiply that out. 4 times a -2 is going to be a -8. Right? If you didn't see how I got that, take your time here and really look at this closely and see how this whole expression right here can be reduced down to, or I should say simplified down to, a -8. All right? Now that still has the bracket right next to it. There's that invisible multiplication. It's good to just kind of remember that that's there. And then inside this set of brackets, we have the -2 plus a -4. That's going to give us a -6. So that's what's left inside of our brackets. Then we have a plus -4. A plus -4 is going to be a -4, right? Now we've gotten rid of our parentheses. Let's work on our brackets next. Here, the brackets have already been simplified as far as they can go. It's already down to one number. So we can actually move right along and do some multiplication here. So we have -8 times a -6. That's going to be a positive 48. And then we have this -4 left over, which is going to give us a 44. All right? Excellent. Let's move on. Why don't you go ahead and try number 3 here, see how you do, and then we'll do it together. All right, so let's again start by rewriting it. We have a -a. Now an a happens to be equal to a -4, and we're going to put that in parentheses, -4. The bracket now needs to be upgraded. So what's the upgrade to a bracket? This guy right here. It's going to be a brace, right? So he becomes a brace. Then we have this negative sign. Don't forget that. And then we have an a. That's going to need parentheses. And an a is a -4. Okay? And then we have this parenthesis. That's going to have to be upgraded to a bracket, right? And then we have a p in parentheses. That'll be a -2. And we have a minus sign, and then an a in parentheses, a -4. And then we have this parenthesis, which needs to be a closing bracket now. And this bracket, which needs to be a closing brace. Okay, so now the fussy work is done. We have it all laid out. Now we can go ahead and simplify, clean things up. Let's concentrate on the parentheses first. So we have this -4 parenthesis. That's going to turn into a +4. Then we have the brace. We're going to leave that alone for now. Then we have a -4 again. Well, that's going to turn into another +4. And then we have this bracket. And then we have a -2 minus a -4. Well, this -4, I'll just write it. I'll take a couple steps here. We'll take the -2 minus -4 is going to be a +4. And then we have our closing bracket and our closing brace. Now, I didn't quite get rid of all of our parentheses here. I'm actually doing it in a couple of steps. I still have this set of parentheses that I didn't do anything with yet. So let's get him taken care of. So I'll just rewrite things. We have 4, brace, 4, bracket. Now we have a -2 plus 4 is going to give us a +2, bracket, brace. Okay? Now we can get rid of some brackets here because we only have one number in the bracket now. So 4 times 2 is going to give us an 8. Brackets are gone. All that we have left is the brace, and then we have this 4 on the outside. 4, remember there's an invisible multiplication. 4 times 8 is 32. So that is our solution for number 3, 32. Did you get it? Hopefully you did. If not, you've got another shot here. We're going to give you one more. And if you can do this one, I think you can pretty much do all of them very easily in your seat work. So let's, why don't you pause the video, try this one on your own, and then we'll do it together. All right, let's see how you did. So let's copy things out. We have a negative sign, and then we have an a, which is a -5, in parentheses. Do not forget your parentheses. Minus an x, another variable, another set of parentheses. And then we have this bracket. Well, that's got to be upgraded to a brace. Then we have a negative, an a, which is a -5. And then we have a parenthesis, which is going to have to be upgraded to a bracket. Minus an a, which is a -5. Minus sign, an x, which is a -2. And then we have this parenthesis here. That's going to have to be a closing bracket now. And we'll have our minus sign. And then we have our parenthesis, which is going to have to be an opening bracket. Remember, we're upgrading all of these. The x is going to become a -2 plus an a, which is going to become a -5. And then we have this closing parenthesis, which will turn into a closing bracket, and this closing bracket, which will turn into a closing brace. All right, so now we're ready to do some cleaning up here. So we have our -5, which is going to become a +5. Then we have a -2. That's going to become a +2. Notice I'm keeping the positive sign with this 2. I didn't keep it with the 5, it's understood. But I am keeping it with the 2 because I need some sign between the 5 and the 2. And that sign is not multiplication. That's the key here. These two, this -5 and this -2, they are being subtracted from each other. But once this negative gets put together, we end up with a positive. So now they're being added together. But we need to make sure that sign stays. Don't accidentally drop that sign and think it's 5 times 2. All right, so make sure that this portion you're very clear on. It should be 5 plus 2. Okay, then we have our brace. Now we have a -5, which is a +5. Right next to it is the bracket. So now we have a -5, which is another +5, minus a -2, which is a +2. And for the same reason as before, I'm actually going to write that positive sign out. If I didn't write the positive sign and just wrote the 2, we'd be in trouble. We wouldn't have any operation between this 5 and 2. And you might accidentally think it's multiplication. It's not. It's being added. So make sure you put the positive with the 2. So again, this guy right here becomes the +5. -2 becomes the +2. All right, and then we have this closing bracket. And then we have a negative sign. And then we have another bracket. And then we have a -2, which I'm not going to do anything with yet. We'll leave that right in parentheses. Plus a -5. So this plus -5, the negative is going to win, and it's going to be a -5. So I'm just going to write it like that. And then we have our ending bracket and our ending brace. So again, the goal was to try to get rid of all the parentheses. I'm actually kind of spreading this out over 2 steps. We got rid of almost all of them. It's just this last one right here at the -2 that we didn't get rid of. So let's do that now. We'll just rewrite this problem. And by the way, this is a good place to just point this out. Don't fall for this mistake. 5 plus 2. A lot of students are going to think, oh, 5 plus 2, let's just add that. That's 7. And then we'll multiply that by this brace and the 5, and we'll continue writing out the problem. No, that is not correct. That is a very false move. And make sure you understand why this is not a correct move. Maybe even take a second here. Why is this wrong? Why can I not do this? Well, the reason I can't add this first and then continue with the rest of the problem is because there is invisible multiplication going on right here. And remember back to your order of operations. What are the order of operations? We have several operators, right? We've got multiplication and division. Those are both operators. We have addition and subtraction. Which ones have to be done first in a given problem? Remember, the multiplication and division always have to be done first. The addition and subtraction, they can be done second. Right? But that's the order in which you need to solve problems. The multiplication has to be done first, then the addition and subtraction. So here, this multiplication has to be done first. This 2 has to be multiplied by everything in this set of braces. This whole rest of the problem needs to be multiplied by this 2 first before you can add the 5 to it. So this is very wrong. You cannot do that. You cannot add 5 plus 2 and then multiply. You need to do the multiplying first, then the adding. So watch out. That is a very common mistake that a lot of students make. So remember that. Pay attention to where you're multiplying and where you're adding. All right. So with that being said, let's rewrite this problem once again. We're trying to get rid of this -2 in parentheses. So we have 5 plus 2 brace 5 bracket 5 plus 2 minus bracket. Now I've got a negative 2 and a negative 5. That's going to give me a negative 7. So there, I've gotten rid of the set of parentheses. Now let's move on to the next symbol of inclusion, which would be the brackets. Let's get rid of those. So we have 5 plus 2. That's being multiplied by a 5. Now in this set of brackets, I can say 5 plus 2 is 7. And then I have a minus minus 7, which is the equivalent of a plus 7. All right. Again, I didn't get rid of all the brackets, but I'm one step closer. So now we'll get rid of the remaining bracket. 5 plus 2 brace. Now we have 5 times 7 is going to be 35 plus 7. Great. Now let's get rid of the braces. So we have 5 plus 2 times 35 plus 7 is 42. And this is where we're at. Now, what can we do? The braces are all down to one number now. So now we can actually multiply this 2 by everything that's in the braces. So 2 times 42. 2 times 42 is 84. So we end up with 5 plus 84. And this is going to be equal to 89. So that is our solution. All right. Very good. If you didn't see how I got to this, just look at this again, rewind, especially understand why I held off on not adding this 5 and 2. That's huge. Why I didn't add that 5 and 2. I kept 5 plus 2 in the problem all the way until the very end before I was able to multiply the 2 by the braces and then add the 5. I did the multiplication first and then I did the addition. All right? Very good. So I think this is probably a good place to stop. You should be pretty much prepared for your lesson seat work today. Good luck, and I will see you next time.